I woke up to the familiar rhythm of Sandra's breathing, the sound of our children playing in the next room, and the gentle hum of the early morning. It was supposed to be another ordinary day, just another chapter in our seemingly perfect life. But as I reached for my phone to check the time, something unusual caught my eye. My tablet was plugged in on the bedside table, silently syncing with Sandra's phone. I didn't usually pay much attention to her messages, trusting her implicitly as we had built our life together over the past 7 years. Sandra and I had met through an online platform a decade ago, and our connection had been instant. We had married 8 years ago, bought a cozy house, and raised 2 wonderful children. Neither of us had experienced a long-term relationship before, which made our bond even more special. This morning, however, something felt off. The notification on the tablet wasn't just another joke or a work-related message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, and the content was different. Too genuine, too heartfelt. My heart began to race as I stared at the screen. The messages were filled with compliments about Sandra's personality and looks, far beyond the usual banter she shared with her coworkers. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sandra worked as a fashion consultant, a job that allowed her to express her vibrant personality and impeccable style. She always maintained that she was straight, yet there was an undeniable charm about her that often drew attention. Recently, she had made a new friend at work named Sophie. Sophie was around the same age as Sandra and me, married to someone herself, and they even had a child in our kids' class. Sandra couldn't stop talking about how funny and cool Sophie was, sending me messages like, "Sophie is so funny, haha." Last night, while Sandra was working a late shift, I was alone at home with the kids. As I plugged in the tablet, the messages from Sophie appeared, not as jokes, but as something more sincere. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take a closer look. What I found shattered the illusion of our perfect life. The messages revealed that Sophie and Sandra had shared a kiss. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Sandra had tried to set a boundary, but Sophie had been persistent, hinting at the possibility of something more. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. How could Sandra, who was always so dedicated to our family, be capable of such betrayal? I took pictures of the messages, unsure of how to confront her without causing a scene. As the day went on, Sandra texted me about her morning with Sophie, something she usually wouldn't do. They had spent hours together discussing work and personal issues. It was out of character for Sandra to have someone over like that without sharing it with me. By midday, my suspicion had turned into a burning anger. I decided to put her on the spot, sending a message that made it clear I knew something was wrong. The response was immediate and devastating. Sandra admitted that she and Sophie were done, that I could see the entire conversation on the tablet. She then tried to call me, but I told her not to, making arrangements for her to sleep in the basement. That night, sleep eluded me. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions: betrayal, confusion, anger. This morning, in the quiet hours before work, we sat down to talk. I suggested marriage counseling, hoping we could salvage what we once had. Sandra couldn't provide a clear reason for her actions. She claimed there was nothing wrong with me, that she was happy, but her actions told a different story. She admitted to feeling curious, but insisted that nothing physical happened beyond a kiss. I expressed my frustration, telling her that her behavior showed she wasn't thinking about me or our children. Her response was a hollow apology, mirroring my own feelings of hurt and betrayal. We agreed to attend counseling, but I knew this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. As I left for work, the weight of our crumbling relationship pressed down on me. The weekend ahead was filled with our children's birthday parties, events where our strained relationship would be on full display. I felt a deep sense of despair, wondering how we would navigate through this storm without our kids noticing the cracks in our foundation. Determined to find answers, I focused on maintaining a level head. I believed in the possibility of fixing our marriage, but the path forward was unclear. Sandra had cut contact with Sophie, at least publicly, but the evidence of their connection was undeniable. I felt trapped, unsure of what steps to take next, and desperate for guidance on how to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. The morning sun struggled to penetrate the gloom that had settled over our once vibrant household. I sat at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee growing cold in my hands, as Sandra moved quietly around the room preparing breakfast for the kids. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension, each of us acutely aware of the chasm that had opened up overnight. After our conversation, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me: anger, confusion, and a lingering sense of disbelief. Sandra's admission that she and Sophie had shared a kiss was a punch to the gut I never saw coming. I couldn't reconcile this new reality with the woman I thought I knew so well. She had always been the glue that held our family together, the one who managed to balance work, home, and our children with grace and enthusiasm. As the children chattered about their plans for the day, oblivious to the turmoil brewing between their parents, I tried to steady my racing thoughts. How had we reached this point? Was there something missing in our relationship that I hadn't noticed? The questions multiplied, each one more troubling than the last. Sandra glanced up from the stove, her eyes meeting mine briefly before she returned to her tasks. There was a vulnerability there that I hadn't seen before, a silent plea for understanding that only deepened my concern. I wanted to reach out to bridge the gap that had formed, but the raw pain in my chest held me back. "Can we talk later?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. She paused, nodding slightly. "Yes, we can. I think we both need to figure this out." Her response was cautious, measured, as if she were navigating uncharted waters. I wanted to trust her, to believe that this was just a momentary lapse, a hiccup in our otherwise steady relationship. But the evidence was stacked against that hope, and doubt began to seep in like a slow poison. Throughout the day, I found myself replaying the messages on the tablet, searching for any hint or clue that might explain Sandra's sudden shift in behavior. The way Sophie had persistently pushed boundaries, the late morning visit to our home, the intimate conversations, they all painted a picture that was hard to ignore. Yet, Sandra's insistence that she was still committed to us left me in a state of limbo, torn between love and suspicion. At work, I tried to focus on my projects, but my mind kept drifting back to the chaos waiting for me at home. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from Sandra, I felt a pang of anxiety, fearing what new revelation it might bring. The facade of normalcy was difficult to maintain when everything underneath felt so fragile. That evening, as the kids settled down with their bedtime stories, Sandra and I sat across from each other at the dining table. The atmosphere was tense, the silence punctuated only by the occasional clink of cutlery against plates. I took a deep breath, knowing that the next steps would determine the future of our marriage. "I think we need to take this seriously," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "Maybe we should really consider seeing a counselor." Sandra nodded, her expression conflicted. "I agree. I want to understand what's happening and how we can fix this." Her willingness to seek help was a small ray of hope in the otherwise bleak situation. Perhaps with professional guidance we could navigate through this storm together, but the uncertainty lingered, casting a shadow over any optimism I tried to muster. As I tucked the kids into bed, their innocent smiles providing a brief respite from the emotional turmoil, I couldn't help but wonder how we would move forward. The foundation of our relationship had been shaken, and rebuilding it would require more than just good intentions. It would demand resilience, honesty, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Lying awake that night, the weight of the day pressed heavily on me. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but a part of me still clung to the hope that our bond could withstand this test. After all, we had built a life together from scratch, overcoming obstacles and growing stronger as a team. Maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. But deep down, I couldn't shake the nagging fear that some wounds might be too deep to heal. The path to reconciliation was unclear, and the choices we made in the coming days would shape the future of our family in ways we couldn't yet imagine. The days that followed our tense conversation were a blur of routine and underlying suspicion. Each morning, I watched Sandra move through our home with a quiet grace, masking the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. Balancing work, parenting, and my growing doubts became a delicate tightrope act, one that required every ounce of my concentration. At work, I tried to immerse myself in my projects, hoping that the demands of my job as a graphic designer would keep my mind occupied. Yet, every notification on my phone sent a jolt of anxiety through me. Was Sandra reaching out to me sincerely, or was there something more behind those messages? The uncertainty gnawed at me, driving me to seek answers in the only way I knew how, through investigation. I decided to keep my suspicions to myself for the time being, not wanting to alarm Sandra or our children. Instead, I focused on gathering evidence discreetly. My first step was to observe Sandra's interactions with Carol, her co-worker. Carol was always the life of the office, her laughter echoing through the open-plan workspace. She had a way of drawing people in, making them feel seen and appreciated. It was no surprise that Sandra and Carol had become close, but now that distance felt different. One afternoon, I noticed Sandra and Carol lingering by the coffee machine, their conversation animated and intense. They shared knowing glances and inside jokes that seemed to go beyond professional camaraderie. My heart pounded as I watched them, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together in a troubling pattern. Determined to understand what was happening, I reached out to my best friend, Daniel. We had been friends since college, and his unwavering support had always been a pillar in my life. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could offer perspective without judgment. "Hey Daniel," I texted him, arranging to meet after work. When we sat down at our favorite cafe, I poured out my concerns. Daniel listened intently, his expression serious. "I'm really sorry you're going through this, Ethan," he said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Have you thought about how you want to approach this, whether you want to confront her directly or continue gathering more evidence?" I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. "I want to believe that there's a reasonable explanation, but the messages and the way she's been acting, it's hard not to see the signs." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "It might be wise to document everything you find. Keep a record of her interactions with Carol and any other suspicious behavior. It'll help if you decide to take this further, whether that's counseling or something else." His advice resonated with me. Using my skills as a graphic designer, I began to create a detailed timeline of Sandra and Carol's interactions. I collected screenshots of their messages, noted the times they spent together outside of work, and observed any changes in Sandra's behavior. Late nights at work, increased secrecy, and subtle shifts in her demeanor. All of these added layers to the growing evidence. One evening, as I reviewed the timeline, I noticed a pattern. Sandra and Carol seemed to communicate more frequently during weekends, often sharing personal details that seemed out of place for mere coworkers. They discussed their families, their struggles, and their aspirations in a way that felt intimate and revealing. It was as if they were confiding in each other, creating a bond that went beyond friendship. Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to attend one of Sandra's weekend events. She had mentioned attending a community art fair with Carol, showcasing some of Carol's latest designs. I knew it was risky, but I needed to see for myself what was happening behind closed doors. Dressed in casual clothes to blend in, I arrived at the bustling fair, the vibrant colors and lively chatter creating a stark contrast to the tension I felt inside. Spotting Sandra and Carol near a display of intricate jewelry, I watched as they interacted with visitors, their chemistry undeniable. They laughed together, shared stories, and even shared a moment of comfortable silence that spoke volumes. As the day progressed, I captured subtle details. Sandra's lingering touches, the way Carol's eyes sparkled when they talked, and the genuine smiles they exchanged. Each observation reinforced my fears, painting a clearer picture of the emotional entanglement that was unfolding. Back at home, I shared my findings with Daniel, who remained a steadfast ally throughout this ordeal. "It's clear there's something more than just friendship here," he concluded, reviewing the timeline I had meticulously compiled. "You need to confront Sandra with this evidence. It's time to get to the bottom of this." Taking a deep breath, I knew the moment of confrontation was inevitable. The weight of the evidence pressed heavily on me, but I also understood the importance of addressing the issue head-on. For the sake of our marriage and our children, I had to seek the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That night, as Sandra prepared for bed, I decided it was time to bring everything to the surface. The air in our bedroom was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the distant sounds of our children's laughter. I felt a surge of determination, ready to face whatever truths lay ahead. "Sandra, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within me. She looked up, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "I know, Ethan. I think we do." As we sat down together, I presented the timeline, laying out the evidence I had gathered. The room seemed to shrink around us, the walls echoing with unspoken words and unaddressed feelings. Sandra listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When I finished, there was a long pause before she finally spoke. "I never meant for it to go this far," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Carol and it just happened. I don't know how to fix it." Her honesty was both a relief and a new source of pain. At least now, there was no more hiding, no more pretending that everything was fine. The path forward was clear, but the journey would be fraught with challenges and heartache. As we navigated through the night, discussing the implications of our actions and the future of our relationship, I felt a sense of clarity amidst the chaos. The investigation had brought us to a crossroads, forcing us to confront the shadows that had been lurking beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. The days following our confrontation were a delicate dance of heightened emotions and silent accusations. The facade of normalcy that Sandra and I had meticulously maintained was beginning to crumble under the weight of our unspoken tensions. Each interaction felt charged with electricity, every glance laden with unspoken words. Sandra seemed to retreat into herself, her vibrant energy dimmed to a shadow of its former self. Mornings that once began with shared smiles and plans for the day now felt cold and distant. She moved through our home with mechanical precision, her laughter subdued, her conversations with me curt and guarded. It was as if a barrier had been erected between us, one that neither of us knew how to dismantle. I found myself grappling with a maelstrom of emotions. Doubt gnawed at my confidence, making me question not only Sandra's actions, but also my own judgment. Was I overreacting? Had I misinterpreted the messages and interactions I had observed? The uncertainty was paralyzing, leaving me adrift in a sea of conflicting feelings. Work became both a refuge and a source of additional stress. As a graphic designer, I thrived on creativity and deadlines, but my mind was perpetually elsewhere. Every project I undertook was tainted by the lingering thoughts of home, making it difficult to focus or find satisfaction in my accomplishments. My colleagues noticed my distraction, offering sympathetic glances and quiet words of encouragement, but their support could only do so much. In the midst of this turmoil, Carol's presence loomed large. She continued to be a charismatic force at the office, her laughter and charm seemingly unaffected by the unfolding drama. However, I began to sense a shift in her demeanor. There were moments when her eyes met mine with a knowing glint, as if she was privy to secrets I wasn't yet aware of. The more I observed her, the more I realized she was adept at manipulating the perceptions of those around her. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I overheard a conversation between Carol and one of our mutual colleagues. Their discussion was laced with subtle jabs and veiled insinuations, painting me in a less favorable light. It was clear Carol was attempting to undermine my credibility, perhaps sensing that I was digging deeper into Sandra's interactions with her. The realization was infuriating. Carol wasn't just a passive participant in this situation. She was actively working against me. Determined not to let her tactics derail my pursuit of the truth, I doubled down on my efforts. I continued to document every interaction between Sandra and Carol, meticulously noting their behavior, the timing of their meetings, and any anomalies that arose. My best friend Daniel remained my steadfast confidant, providing a sounding board for my frustrations and helping me strategize my next moves. "Ethan," Daniel said one evening as we sat in our favorite cafe, "you need to be careful. Carol is playing a dangerous game. Don't let her drag you down with her." I nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. "I know, but I can't just ignore what's happening. I need to protect my family." Daniel leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Have you considered reaching out to someone higher up at work? Maybe there's someone who can help you navigate this without escalating things further." His suggestion planted a seed of an idea. Perhaps involving a neutral party could provide the clarity and support I needed to handle Carol's manipulations effectively. As I mulled over his advice, a sense of resolve began to take root within me. I couldn't let Carol's tactics dictate the course of my life and my marriage. Meanwhile, Sandra's emotional withdrawal was taking its toll on our relationship. Our conversations had dwindled to mere logistics about the children and household chores. The warmth and intimacy that once defined our partnership were conspicuously absent, replaced by a coldness that left me yearning for the connection we once shared. One night after putting the kids to bed, I decided to broach the subject again. Sitting beside Sandra on the couch, I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "Sandra, I know things have been tough lately. I want us to work through this together. Maybe we could really give counseling a chance?" She looked down, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee mug. "I want that too, Ethan. I'm not sure where to start." Her admission was both a relief and a new source of frustration. At least she was willing to try, but the path forward was still shrouded in uncertainty. I reached out to schedule our first counseling session, hoping that a professional perspective could bridge the growing chasm between us. As the week progressed, the strain of our strained relationship began to seep into every aspect of our lives. Even simple activities, like helping the kids with their homework or preparing dinner, felt like monumental tasks. The laughter that once filled our home was now replaced by tense silences and occasional bursts of anger. One evening, as I was tidying up the living room, I noticed Sandra sitting alone on the balcony, gazing out into the night. The sight of her so vulnerable stirred a mix of emotions within me. Part of me wanted to reach out to comfort her, but another part was consumed by the lingering hurt and anger over her actions. As I approached her, she glanced up, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sadness and resignation. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you or the kids." I sighed, the frustration evident in my voice. "I know you're sorry, Sandra, but words aren't enough anymore. We need to find a way to fix this, for our sake and for the kids." She nodded, her shoulders slumping. "I want to fix it too, but I don't know how." In that moment, the depth of our predicament became painfully clear. Our relationship was teetering on the edge, and without decisive action, it could crumble entirely. The counseling sessions provided some guidance, but the underlying issues remained unresolved, festering beneath the surface. Back at work, Carol's manipulative tactics continued to escalate. She began spreading rumors about my performance, subtly sowing seeds of doubt among our colleagues. Projects that were once straightforward became mired in unnecessary complications, and my reputation began to suffer. It was evident that Carol was intent on undermining me, ensuring that my investigation into her relationship with Sandra would not go unchecked. One particularly challenging day, I received an anonymous email containing fabricated evidence of my supposed incompetence. The timing was impeccable, as it coincided with a critical project deadline. The stress was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but feel that Carol's influence was pervasive, reaching even into the most professional aspects of my life. Determined not to let her sabotage my career, I sought advice from a trusted mentor outside the company. He listened intently as I recounted the events, his expression one of concern and determination. "Carol is playing a dangerous game, Ethan," he said firmly. "You need to document everything and consider escalating this to HR with the evidence you've gathered. Protect yourself before it's too late." His counsel resonated with me. I had been so focused on uncovering the truth about Sandra and Carol that I had neglected the broader implications of Carol's manipulations. It was time to take a more proactive stance, both in my personal life and at work. Armed with renewed determination, I intensified my efforts to gather irrefutable evidence against Carol. Late nights spent reviewing messages, early mornings observing her interactions, and countless hours of meticulous documentation began to pay off. Each piece of evidence I collected not only strengthened my case, but also fortified my resolve to reclaim control over my life. As the weekend approached, I felt a sense of urgency building within me. The children's birthday parties loomed on the horizon, events that would require us to present a united front despite our internal struggles. The pressure was mounting, and I knew that the decisions I made in the coming days would have lasting repercussions for our family. In the quiet moments before sleep, I reflected on the journey so far. What had once seemed like a small crack in our relationship had now become a gaping chasm, threatening to swallow everything we had built together. The path to reconciliation was fraught with obstacles, but the growing evidence against Carol offered a glimmer of hope, perhaps not for our marriage, but for my sense of justice and self-respect. As I drifted into an uneasy sleep, the echoes of doubt lingered, mingling with a newfound determination to see this through to the end. The battle was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The days leading up to the weekend were a relentless cascade of revelations and emotional upheaval. Each morning, I woke up with a heavy heart, the weight of the mounting evidence against Carol pressing down on me. The timeline I had meticulously crafted now painted a picture that was impossible to ignore. Sandra and Carol's interactions were no longer just signs of a potential affair. They were undeniable proof of a deep, emotional entanglement that threatened the very foundation of my marriage. One evening, after another exhausting day at work, I sat down with Daniel to review the latest additions to my timeline. Carol had been increasingly manipulative, orchestrating situations to isolate me and undermine my credibility both professionally and personally. The final piece of the puzzle came in the form of an email thread I had intercepted, revealing Carol's explicit plans to sever ties with her own life and start anew with Sandra. "This is it, Ethan," Daniel said, his voice a mix of concern and determination. "This is the smoking gun. Carol is planning to leave her husband and children for Sandra. You need to confront her before she makes her move." My mind raced as I absorbed the information. The realization that Carol had orchestrated this entire situation to not only disrupt my life, but also to hijack mine, was infuriating. It wasn't just about Sandra anymore. It was about Carol's manipulative schemes and the lengths she would go to achieve her goals. That night, sleep eluded me as I replayed every interaction, every message, and every suspicious glance. The betrayal cut deeper than I had imagined, and the path forward seemed shrouded in darkness. I knew I couldn't handle this alone, not anymore. It was time to take decisive action. The following morning, I approached Sandra with a resolve I didn't know I possessed. She was seated at the kitchen table, her eyes tired but attentive as she sipped her coffee. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent storm brewing between us. "Sandra, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. "I know, Ethan. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, and I want to fix this." I took a deep breath, reaching for the stack of evidence I had gathered. "I have proof, Sandra, proof that you and Carol have been more than just friends. You're planning to leave me, to start a life with her." Her face paled, and for a moment I saw the facade crumble. "Ethan, it's not what you think," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far." I held up the emails, my heart pounding. "This isn't a misunderstanding, Sandra. Carol is manipulating you, trying to tear us apart. She's planning to take everything from me, my family, my life. You need to see that this is wrong." Sandra looked down, her hands trembling. "I don't know how to stop it. She's so persuasive, and I'm confused about my feelings." The room seemed to close in around us, the weight of our fractured relationship pressing down on both of us. I wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but the betrayal left a chasm between us that felt impossible to bridge. "Sandra, please," I implored, my voice cracking with emotion. "We can get through this together. Let's go to counseling, really work on our marriage. Don't let Carol destroy what we have." She shook her head, her tears falling freely now. "I want to save us, Ethan, but I'm lost. I don't know what to do." The helplessness I felt was overwhelming. Here was the woman I had built a life with, now torn apart by the manipulations of someone else. The realization that our marriage was hanging by a thread, strained by forces beyond our control, was a bitter pill to swallow. That night, as I lay in bed, the sounds of our children sleeping peacefully provided a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. The betrayal had reached a boiling point, and the time for passive suffering was over. It was time to reclaim my life, to protect my family from the corrosive influence of Carol. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions and strategic planning. I continued attending counseling sessions with Sandra, trying to salvage what was left of our relationship. But the evidence against Carol loomed large, casting a shadow over every interaction we had. Sandra's conflicted emotions made it clear that Carol's influence was deep and pervasive, and without intervention, our marriage was on the brink of collapse. One afternoon, while reviewing my notes, Daniel dropped by to check in. His presence was a comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this battle. We sat down together, the gravity of the situation settling between us. "Daniel, I can't let Carol get away with this," I confessed, my frustration evident. "She's tearing my family apart, and I need to stop her." He nodded, his expression resolute. "You have the evidence, Ethan. Carol's manipulations are exposed. It's time to take action, not just for yourself, but for everyone she's hurting." His words resonated with me, sparking a determination I hadn't felt in weeks. It was time to confront Carol head-on, to expose her for the manipulative force she was. The plan had to be meticulous, ensuring that justice was served without further collateral damage. That evening, I decided to reach out to Carol's supervisor, providing the documented evidence of her unethical behavior and manipulations. It was a risky move, but it was the only way to ensure that Carol would face the consequences of her actions. The email I sent was detailed and damning, outlining every instance of her deceit and manipulation. Days turned into a tense waiting game as I awaited a response. Meanwhile, Sandra and I continued our counseling sessions, the strained conversations slowly paving the way for tentative reconciliation. The fight against Carol had become a pivotal point in our lives, forcing us to confront not only our own vulnerabilities, but also the destructive influence of a third party. Finally, I received a response from Carol's supervisor. The company was launching an internal investigation, and Carol was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. The relief was palpable, a sense of vindication washing over me. Carol's reign of manipulation was finally being dismantled, and justice was beginning to take its course. With Carol's influence waning, Sandra and I found a renewed sense of purpose in repairing our marriage. The counseling sessions became more productive, our conversations more honest and heartfelt. The path to healing was still long and fraught with challenges, but the immediate threat had been neutralized, allowing us to focus on rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. As the weekend approached, I felt a cautious optimism. The children's birthday parties loomed on the horizon. Events that had once seemed daunting now felt manageable. Sandra and I had managed to present a united front, our collaboration a testament to the resilience of our bond. That night, as I reflected on the tumultuous journey we had endured, I realized that the battle against Carol had not only exposed the vulnerabilities in our marriage, but had also ignited a fire within me, a determination to protect what was truly important. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with Sandra by my side, I felt a renewed sense of hope and the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The internal turmoil that had consumed me over the past weeks had finally crystallized into a clear objective. I needed to reclaim control over my life and protect my family from the toxic influence of Carol. The evidence I had gathered was irrefutable, and with Carol now under investigation, I felt a surge of determination to ensure that justice was served not just for me, but for everyone she had wronged. Sitting in my home office, I stared at the array of documents and screenshots spread out before me. Each piece of evidence represented a betrayal, a calculated move by Carol to dismantle my life. The weight of it all pressed down on me, but beneath that weight lay a spark of resolve. I couldn't let Carol's manipulations go unchecked. She had not only attempted to destroy my marriage, but had also tainted my professional reputation. I reached out to Daniel once more, knowing that his unwavering support was crucial in the days ahead. We met at our favorite cafe, the same place where countless conversations had helped me navigate this crisis. Daniel listened attentively as I laid out my thoughts. "I can't let Carol get away with this, Daniel," I began, my voice steady despite the anger boiling within me. "She's causing so much pain, not just to me, but to others as well. I need to take action." Daniel leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "What are you thinking? Revenge can be a dangerous path. You need to make sure that whatever you do is justified and won't backfire." I nodded, appreciating his cautious wisdom. "I know. I want to expose her for who she truly is, but I need to do it the right way. I don't want to stoop to her level or let my actions hurt innocent people." He tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table. "Maybe it's time to involve others who can help. If Carol's manipulative behavior is affecting more people, gathering testimonies and evidence from them could strengthen your case. You don't have to do this alone." His suggestion resonated with me. Carol's charm had undoubtedly affected more than just me. If others had fallen prey to her manipulations, their voices could amplify the truth and ensure that Carol faced the consequences she deserved. Over the next few days, I reached out discreetly to former colleagues and acquaintances who had interacted with Carol. Their stories mirrored my own experiences, instances of manipulation, subtle coercion, and the erosion of trust. With each conversation, my case against Carol grew stronger, a collective testament to her deceitful nature. Armed with this new information, I decided to take a proactive approach. I began compiling a comprehensive report, meticulously organizing the evidence and testimonies to present a compelling case. My goal was clear: to ensure that Carol's actions were exposed, leading to her professional and personal downfall. Meanwhile, Sandra and I continued our counseling sessions, striving to mend the fragile threads of our relationship. The progress was slow, but noticeable. We began to communicate more openly, sharing our fears and hopes for the future. The shared goal of rebuilding our marriage provided a foundation upon which we could start to heal. One evening, as I reviewed the final sections of my report, Daniel stopped by to offer his support. We sat together, the room filled with a sense of purpose. "I think you're ready," Daniel said, his voice filled with conviction. "This report is solid. Present it to the company, and they won't be able to ignore it." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. "You're right. It's time to make sure Carol faces the consequences of her actions." With Daniel's encouragement, I reached out to Carol's supervisor, attaching the detailed report and requesting a formal investigation. It was a risky move, but I knew it was necessary to protect not only myself, but also others who might fall victim to Carol's manipulations. Days passed in a tense limbo as I awaited a response. The uncertainty was nerve-wracking, but I found solace in the support system I had built. Sandra's presence provided comfort, and our children remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around us. Finally, I received an acknowledgement from the company. Carol was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. The news was a bittersweet relief. While Carol's immediate threat was neutralized, the journey toward healing was just beginning. In the meantime, I continued to bolster my case, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. The sense of purpose that had been missing in the recent weeks returned, fueling my determination to see this through to the end. As the weekend approached, the impending family events loomed large on the horizon. I knew that maintaining a united front with Sandra would be crucial, especially in front of our children. The scars of the past weeks were still fresh, but the progress we had made provided a glimmer of hope. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the path I had taken. From the depths of betrayal and confusion, I had found a clear direction. The journey was far from over, but with each step, I was reclaiming my life and paving the way for a brighter future. The strategies I had employed were not driven by vengeance, but by a desire for justice and protection of those I loved. Carol's reign of manipulation was coming to an end, and I felt empowered by the truth we had unearthed together. As I drifted into sleep, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The battle was intensifying, but I was no longer fighting alone. With Daniel's support and Sandra's willingness to rebuild, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to restore the harmony that had been disrupted by Carol's deceit. The weeks following my decision to expose Carol were a whirlwind of anticipation and meticulous planning. Every day felt like a step closer to reclaiming my life, yet the tension was palpable, hanging over me like a dark cloud. Carol's manipulative presence was no longer a looming threat. It was an active target in my quest for justice. I spent countless hours refining my report, ensuring that every piece of evidence was irrefutable. The testimonies I had gathered from former colleagues added weight to my case, painting a comprehensive picture of Carol's deceitful nature. With Daniel's unwavering support, I felt prepared to take the final steps toward dismantling her web of manipulation. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across my living room, I made the final adjustments to my report. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant laughter of my children playing in their bedrooms. Sandra sat beside me, her presence a comforting reminder that I wasn't alone in this battle. "We're almost there," I said, looking up at her. "Once Carol is out of the picture, maybe we can finally start healing." She reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We will get through this, Ethan, together." With a deep breath, I sent the final email to Carol's supervisor, attaching the comprehensive report and requesting an immediate investigation. The act felt like releasing a dam. A surge of emotions rushed through me as I watched the sent confirmation appear on my screen. It was done. Now all that remained was to wait and hope that justice would prevail. The days that followed were a test of patience and resilience. I threw myself into my work, attempting to distract myself from the uncertainty that loomed over our family. Sandra and I continued our counseling sessions, each meeting a small step toward rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. The process was slow, but the progress was evident, and it gave me hope for the future. One morning, as I sipped my coffee and reviewed some design drafts, my phone buzzed with an email notification. My heart skipped a beat as I saw the subject line, regarding Carol's conduct investigation. I quickly opened it, my hands trembling with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. "Dear Ethan, thank you for your comprehensive report detailing Carol's unethical behavior. After a thorough investigation, we have found substantial evidence supporting your claims. Carol has been placed on indefinite suspension pending further review. We are taking this matter very seriously and will ensure that appropriate actions are taken. We appreciate your dedication to maintaining the integrity of our workplace. Sincerely, Supervisor's name." Relief washed over me, tempered by the realization that this was just the beginning. Carol's immediate removal from the company was a victory, but the battle for justice was far from over. I knew that dismantling her influence would require continued effort and vigilance. The following days were a mix of triumph and reflection. Carol's absence was felt deeply within the office, her colleagues whispering about her sudden suspension and the scandal that had erupted. The weight of her manipulations began to lift, replaced by a cautious optimism that the truth was finally coming to light. At home, Sandra and I felt a renewed sense of unity. Our counseling sessions had become more productive, allowing us to communicate openly about our fears and hopes. The strain of the past weeks was gradually giving way to a sense of healing, as we both committed to rebuilding our marriage with honesty and understanding. However, Carol wasn't one to accept defeat easily. A few days after her suspension, I received an anonymous package at my home. Inside was a USB drive labeled simply, "For Ethan." My heart sank as I realized Carol might have found another way to retaliate. The contents of the drive would determine the next steps in this ongoing saga. With Sandra by my side, I inserted the USB into my laptop. A series of photos and videos began to play, each one more incriminating than the last. Carol had documented private moments between Sandra and herself, attempting to tarnish Sandra's reputation and cast doubt on her integrity. The evidence was damaging, but it also revealed Carol's relentless pursuit of revenge. Determined not to let Carol's spiteful actions undermine everything I had fought for, I took immediate action. I documented the new evidence, ensuring its authenticity, and reached out to Carol's supervisor once more. This time, the message was clear. Carol's attempts to sabotage our lives would not go unanswered. The response was swift. The company launched a secondary investigation, this time focusing on Carol's attempts to defame and manipulate those around her. Internal policies were enforced, and legal actions were considered to prevent Carol from causing further harm. The protective measures taken by the company reinforced the seriousness of Carol's misconduct, providing a shield against her vindictive tactics. As Carol's grip on her former colleagues weakened, the office environment began to shift back to a place of professionalism and mutual respect. The scandal that had once overshadowed our workplace was fading, replaced by a cautious return to normalcy. The impact of her manipulations was now being addressed, ensuring that no one else would fall victim to her deceit. Back at home, the tension that had once dominated our household was dissipating. Sandra and I continued to find solace in each other's presence, our shared experiences fostering a deeper connection. The children remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil that had threatened to tear our family apart, their innocence a beacon of light in the midst of darkness. One evening, as we sat together watching our children play, Sandra turned to me with a gentle smile. "I'm grateful we decided to fight for our marriage," she said softly. "It hasn't been easy, but I believe we're stronger because of it." I nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude and love. "I'm grateful too, Sandra. We've been through so much, but we're still here, still fighting for each other." Our journey was far from over, but the immediate threat posed by Carol had been neutralized. The path ahead was still lined with challenges, but with each step we were moving closer to healing and rebuilding the life we had once taken for granted. As the weekend approached, we prepared for our children's birthday parties with a newfound sense of purpose. The events that had once seemed daunting were now opportunities to showcase our unity and resilience. Friends and family gathered, celebrating not just the milestones of our children, but also the strength of our family bond. The parties were a success, filled with laughter, joy, and the warmth of loved ones. The atmosphere was a testament to the healing that had taken place, a reflection of the hard work and dedication we had invested in our marriage. Sandra and I navigated the celebrations with grace, our interactions a harmonious blend of cooperation and affection. That night, as I reflected on the tumultuous journey we had endured, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. Carol's downfall had not only protected our family, but had also reinforced the importance of trust and communication in our relationship. The scars of betrayal were still present, but they served as a reminder of our resilience and the power of unwavering commitment. In the quiet moments before sleep, I acknowledged the lessons learned and the strength gained from overcoming such adversity. The battle against Carol had transformed us, shaping our lives in ways we hadn't imagined. As I drifted into an uneasy sleep, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, knowing that we had faced the darkness and emerged stronger on the other side. The final days of the investigation were a whirlwind of emotions and decisive actions. With Carol officially suspended and her manipulative schemes laid bare, a sense of relief began to wash over me. The immediate threat she posed was neutralized, but the journey to reclaiming my life and rebuilding my marriage was just beginning. One afternoon, as I sat in the quiet of my home office, I received a call from Carol's supervisor. The conversation was brief but impactful. "Ethan," the supervisor began, "after reviewing the evidence you provided, we have decided to terminate Carol's employment effective immediately. Additionally, We are implementing new protocols to prevent such manipulative behavior in the future. Thank you for your diligence in bringing this matter to our attention." A wave of vindication surged through me. Carol's downfall was complete. She would no longer have the opportunity to disrupt my life or harm others. The justice I had sought was finally being served. With Carol out of the picture, the atmosphere at work began to shift back to normalcy. Colleagues who had been wary of Carol's presence started to engage more openly, the tension that had once filled the office dissipating. It felt like a weight had been lifted, allowing me to focus on my professional responsibilities without the constant undercurrent of Carol's manipulations. Back at home, Sandra and I continued our counseling sessions with renewed hope. The sessions had become a safe space for us to express our fears, frustrations, and aspirations. Slowly but surely, the trust that had been fractured began to mend. We started to rediscover the connection that had drawn us together years ago, finding strength in our shared commitment to our family. One evening, as we sat together watching our children play in the living room, Sandra turned to me with a gentle smile. "I'm really grateful we decided to fight for our marriage," she said softly. "It hasn't been easy, but I believe we're stronger because of it." I nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude and love. "I'm grateful too, Sandra. We've been through so much, but we're still here, still fighting for each other." Our children's laughter filled the room, a stark contrast to the turmoil we had endured. It was a reminder of what truly mattered and the importance of preserving the harmony of our family. As the weekend approached, the prospect of attending our children's birthday parties loomed large. In the past weeks, such events had felt daunting, filled with the anxiety of maintaining a united front amidst our internal struggles. But now, with Carol's threat eliminated and our relationship on a path to healing, the parties felt like opportunities for celebration rather than sources of stress. On the day of the first party, I arrived early to help set up. Sandra was there soon after, her presence a comforting constant. Together, we arranged decorations, coordinated with other parents, and ensured that everything was perfect for the children's special day. As friends and family began to arrive, the atmosphere was filled with joy and laughter. Our children ran around, their faces radiant with happiness, oblivious to the challenges their parents had faced. Sandra and I moved through the crowd with ease, our interactions natural and unforced, a testament to the progress we had made. Throughout the day, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief. The parties were a success, filled with moments of pure joy and the warmth of loved ones. The laughter and celebration were a testament to the resilience of our family and the strength of our bond. Later that evening, as we cleaned up and the last of the guests departed, Sandra and I sat down together, exhausted but content. The day had been a significant milestone in our journey toward healing, a tangible reminder of what we were fighting for. "I think we did it," Sandra said softly, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of relief and hope. "We managed to celebrate without letting the past overshadow us." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. "Yes, we did, and this is just the beginning. We have a long road ahead, but I believe we can handle anything as long as we're together." As we tucked the children into bed that night, their peaceful slumber a stark contrast to the chaos of the past weeks, I reflected on the journey we had undertaken. From the depths of betrayal and manipulation to the heights of resilience and justice, our story had been one of profound transformation. The revenge I had sought against Carol had been a necessary step in reclaiming my life. By exposing her deceit and ensuring she faced the consequences of her actions, I had not only protected my family, but also restored my sense of self-worth and justice. Carol's downfall had served as a catalyst for change, forcing us to confront our vulnerabilities and emerge stronger on the other side. In the quiet moments before sleep, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the support of my friend Daniel, the dedication of our counselor, and the unwavering love of Sandra. The scars of the past would remain, but they were now reminders of our strength and the unbreakable bond we shared. As I drifted into sleep, the events of the past weeks played out in my mind, a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of trust, and the unyielding pursuit of justice. The shadows of doubt and betrayal had been dispelled, replaced by the light of new beginnings and the promise of a brighter future. With Sandra by my side and our family safe and united, I felt ready to embrace whatever the future held. The battle had been fierce, but the victory was ours. Together, we had navigated the storm and emerged stronger, our hearts bound by the trials we had overcome and the love that had endured. In the end, the revenge against Carol had not only brought justice, but it also paved the way for healing and renewal. Our lives were no longer defined by the shadows of the past, but by the hope and determination to build a future filled with trust, love, and unwavering support for one another. Months had passed since the tumultuous events that had threatened to unravel the fabric of our family. The seasons had changed, bringing with them new beginnings and the promise of healing. As I sit in the quiet of our now peaceful home, I reflect on the journey that brought us here and the lessons we've learned along the way. Sandra and I had continued our counseling sessions, each meeting a stepping stone toward rebuilding the trust and intimacy that had been fractured. The sessions had become a sanctuary where we could openly communicate our fears, hopes, and aspirations without judgment. Slowly but surely, the wounds began to heal, and our connection deepened in ways we hadn't anticipated. Our children, blissfully unaware of the storm that had once raged around them, thrived in the renewed harmony of our household. Their laughter filled the rooms, a constant reminder of what truly mattered and the importance of preserving the love that bound us together. Watching them grow and play, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the resilience of our family. At work, the environment had transformed significantly since Carol's departure. Her absence had lifted the veil of tension that had once clouded the office, allowing for a more collaborative and supportive atmosphere. Colleagues who had been wary of Carol's manipulations now engaged more openly, fostering a sense of community and mutual respect. The company had implemented stricter policies to prevent such manipulative behavior in the future, ensuring a healthier and more professional workspace for everyone. Daniel remained a steadfast ally throughout this ordeal, his unwavering support a pillar of strength I leaned on during the darkest moments. Our friendship had deepened, built on a foundation of trust and shared experiences. We often met at our favorite cafe, where countless conversations had helped me navigate the complexities of my personal and professional life. His advice and perspective had been invaluable, guiding me toward making decisions that upheld my integrity and protected my family. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves painted the landscape in hues of gold and amber, Sandra and I sat on our porch, sipping warm drinks and watching the sunset. The air was filled with the soothing sounds of nature, a stark contrast to the chaos we had endured not long ago. "I'm proud of us," Sandra said softly, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "We've come so far, and I believe we're stronger because of it." I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "I couldn't have done it without you. We've faced so much together, and we've emerged more united than ever." Her smile was gentle, a beacon of hope and love. "Here's to new beginnings and the future we're building together." As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, our lives settled into a comfortable rhythm. The scars of the past remained, but they served as reminders of our strength and the unwavering bond we shared. We had learned to communicate more effectively, to cherish the moments of joy, and to support each other through the inevitable challenges that life presented. One sunny afternoon, our eldest child brought home a school project celebrating family. As I glanced at the colorful drawings and heartfelt messages, I felt a surge of emotion. The project depicted our family surrounded by love, trust, and resilience, a testament to the journey we had undertaken together. Sandra knelt beside me, her eyes shining with pride. "Look at this, Ethan. It's us, happy and strong." I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. "It really is, and it's all thanks to us never giving up." In the years that followed, our family continued to grow and flourish. We celebrated milestones with joy, supported each other through hardships, and built a life grounded in trust, love, and mutual respect. The shadows that had once threatened to engulf us had been dispelled by the light of our unwavering commitment and the collective strength we had harnessed. As I walked hand in hand with Sandra through the vibrant streets of our community, the laughter of our children echoing in the background, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The revenge I had sought against Carol had not only brought justice, but had also reinforced the importance of protecting what truly mattered. It had been a catalyst for change, pushing us to confront our vulnerabilities and emerge stronger on the other side. Looking back, I realized that the journey was not just about overcoming betrayal, but about rediscovering ourselves and the love that had always been the cornerstone of our relationship. The trials we had faced had tested our limits, but they had also revealed the depth of our resilience and the unbreakable bond we shared. As the sun set on another beautiful day, casting a warm glow over our lives, I knew that we had embraced the dawn of a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of endless possibilities. Together we had navigated the shadows and emerged into the light, ready to face whatever the future held with courage and unwavering unity.